Okay, this video is called What is the Scientific Foundation of Internal Medicine? And what happened was, I have to drive a lot. I'm bored. I always listen to audiobooks in the car. So I just figured, you know what, I'll listen to Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Okay, so this is Alice, and she goes through the looking glass, which means the mirror. And on the other side of it, she's kind of amazed because everything's the opposite of what she expects it to be. So, I went through Alice in Wonderland first, and I'm kind of thinking, this is a bunch of nonsense. Why am I wasting my time? Then I went through the Looking Glass book. They're both by Lewis Carroll, the English author. And I thought that one was better. A lot of clever wordplay and funny jokes, and it kind of reminded me like of a Monty Python skit. But still, there was no driving purpose, or there was no great revelation of insight. It was just a little bit of, silly puns and nonsense that was funny. And I thought to myself, well, there goes 2 weeks of driving, listening to all this stuff. What have I gotten out of it? And I just kind of let it go. And I often make a book report when I read something. But then I had the feeling that this is really what internal medicine is like. A bunch of nonsense, okay? So what am I talking about? When she goes the other side of the mirror, everything's the opposite of what she says. And so we'll just go through this real quick. This could have been like a book report of those two books. A low-fat vegan says we can usually cure hypertension, diabetes, coronary artery disease, autoimmune disease, etc. because these diseases are caused by a poor diet. Whereas an internal medicine doctor says these are chronic diseases. No one can cure them. No one knows what causes them. The only treatment is to try to slow them down with pills. An internal medicine doctor says, we are doctors, we are smart, we got good grades in college, we are the standard of care, we never cure any chronic disease, we're the best. And it sort of seems to me, if you had a sports team that bragged about never ever winning a single game, would you say that they're the best or even good? You would say they stink. They always lose. Conventional medicine always loses with chronic disease. Low-fat vegan diet, low-sodium vegan diet, it cures these diseases all day long, every day. Most of the time it's able to cure these diseases. Okay, and if you look at the textbooks, the big, thick textbooks I used to admire, let's say, of internal medicine or med school pathology, pathophysiology books, medicine books like Harrison's and Cecil's, pathology books like Robbins, Catron and Kumar, okay? Those books are a joke. They're completely wrong about obesity, atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, hypertension, diabetes, autoimmune, disease, diet, cancer, dementia, TBI, stroke management. It's ridiculous. They got virtually nothing on toxicology, estrogenic chemicals, mitochondrial inhibitors, SERCA inhibitors, neurotoxins, etc. Okay. And then you say to yourself, why is it that, you go to my YouTube channel and you watch these videos. In one day, I could teach a health coach or any motivated person with no medical scientific background what are the causes for the common chronic diseases and how a person could avoid them. Quite often, reverse them. In 1 month, if a person was serious about wanting to learn and just watch the videos at my YouTube channel or some of the other really good low-fat vegan YouTube channels, they could have a pretty in-depth understanding of these topics. Just 1 month of education. So why is it that students, and supposedly students, smart students, high IQ students, supposedly, average IQ of a doctor is probably about 120. They go to 4 years of college, pre-med program. They go to 4 years of medical school. They do residencies of at least 3 years, let's say 3 years internal medicine, but more than that for other fields. So let's say an average of 12 or more years. How come they don't know anything? They don't know any of the causes diseases. They really don't. I mean, I talk to them all the time, and I know them, and I like them, and they go in with a good intention. They certainly go in wanting to help people, being pretty good students. They have a lot of choice in what they do. I don't think doctors are as smart as the public thinks they are, no, anywhere near. Medicine tends to select for somebody who I would say is a hard worker. You have to be a hard worker, tons of work for doctors, but you have to be kind of conformist. You have to obey a lot of stupid rules. You have to be willing to do endless amounts of silly busy work. So it doesn't attract mavericks as much as people think it does. Okay, in pre-med education, biology is useful, but it's not really taught with the emphasis on humans. It tends to be taught from an evolutionary perspective with a lot of information about insects and things like that. Biochemistry textbooks are essentially kind of fake. I mean, don't get me wrong, you learn what glycolysis is. That's nice that you know the cycle, but what you really need to know to be a better doctor is what inhibits it. What inhibits mitochondria? What inhibits Krebs cycle? And there's none of that. Zero. None of the clinically significant inhibitors of mitochondria were in any of the biochemistry textbooks. I still own like 5 biochemistry textbooks, okay? Nothing useful in these books. But you go on the internet, I'll real quick find like 25 clinically relevant inhibitors of mitochondrial function. That's good to know. Okay, the organic chemistry, physical chemistry, they're all taught from a dry scientific point of view as if you were going to synthesize paint for, a paint company. They're not taught with a focus on clinical medicine. So what you need to learn from those classes could be taught in a month or less. Okay, physics, calculus, statistics, that's all a waste of time. People say you need to know statistics to read a scientific paper. That's absolute nonsense. You need to know who funded the paper. Okay, emphasis on memorizing minutia. Medical students do a ton of studying. They're working so hard. They know so much. But the reality is they don't learn the useful stuff. What you want to know to treat a disease is what caused the disease and can I avoid the thing that caused the disease? Okay, then you want to know general principles of healing. How does one improve blood flow? How does one improve immune function? Okay, and then really if you want good results, you should know about toxicology. What are the things that make people sick? How can we avoid them? All right, and you should know something about hormones. And they'll teach you, what estrogen is, but they don't teach you about all these endocrine disrupting chemicals, these estrogenic chemicals. Okay, they don't teach. No, I never met anybody my whole life in the medical field who knows anything about how to improve blood flow with regard to diet. Okay, here we go. And then here is next slide. And Alice is here having lunch with the Queen, and the Queen's like Big Pharma. Big Pharma runs the show. They got all the money. They control everything. They control the funding. They can endow professorships. They can do pretty much whatever they want. Okay, this rabbit over here is kind of anxious and hyper, and the rabbit reminds me of the prestigious medical schools and Ivy League professors who do fake, bogus, dishonest research trying to promote drugs. And they have to do that because they won't get grant money from Big Pharma unless they're promoting drugs for Big Pharma. And they're really quite evil. They sell their souls and recommend drugs, let's say, for children, these psychiatric drugs that are completely bogus and cause, almost like a slow chemical lobotomy and poor long-term outcomes. Turn some little kid who's a little hyper because he's bored at school and turn him into a psychiatric patient on multiple drugs, polypharmacy, okay? The Mad Hatter kind of reminds me of hospital owners, hospital administrators, that pretend they care about patients, but all they really care about is making money. And the way you make money with a hospital is not by helping patients. You make money with hospitals by running them like factories, like assembly lines, and pushing for more productivity, more. It's fee-for-service medicine. The more so-called service you provide, the more money you get paid. Like, making widgets. The more widgets you make, the more money you get paid. I one time had an old doctor tell me, look, medicine is like selling hot dogs. The more hot dogs you sell, the more money you make. Okay? And then the March Hare is like the insurance company. And the insurance company is in on the game because the insurance company will only pay the doctor. For the most part, the doctor only gets paid if they sell drugs or provide standard conventional medical services. And you have to fit in those check boxes of so-called standard of care. But the standard of care is based on, cognitively impaired people who can't participate in their care. The reality is patients who can participate in their care can get much better outcomes for many different situations than can a person with the so-called standard of care, which almost always is just take this pill and I'll see you in a couple months. Okay. And notice the lavish lunch, which is basically like saying, play ball with us and you'll get some money, you'll have a decent life. You don't play ball with us, I'll show you what happens to doctors who don't play ball with Big Pharma and the medical system. The Queen says, off with their heads, okay? So they're basically screwed. They say, get lost, get out of here. You're not welcome in conventional medicine if you try to bring in anything new. And that's why I joke. People say, oh, modern medicine's based on science. Yeah, right, BS. When I was a wrestler in college, we always wanted to get good. Because if you don't get good in wrestling, then you lose. And it's no fun losing in wrestling, okay? So there was a very honest, serious discussion about how does one get better at wrestling. And we wanted to know the truth. It is not like that in medicine. In medicine, it's be productive, make your money, generate your billing codes, practice conventional medicine. Who are you unless you are, getting grant money from Big Pharma to do a research study, new ideas are not welcome unless they are profitable. And that is the big sad truth, okay? It's one of my big frustrations with medicine is that I got tons of new ideas. I figured out tons of new things. They are not welcome in conventional medicine. Okay, and then here is early on in the book, Alice in Wonderland, she fell down a rabbit hole. And to fall down a rabbit hole kind of means to fall into some big time waster. And I can tell you, in conventional medicine, what really reminds me of falling down a rabbit hole, as Alice did in Wonderland, is screening with CT scans. The public loves screening with CT scans. They hope they're going to win the lottery, discover an early cancer, have it removed, and save their life. What they don't understand is it usually ends up being endless nonsense, okay? You go in for a lung cancer screening study. What happens? There's a micronodule in the corner of the lung, maybe a ground glass nodule, end up getting followed up for 2 years, or if it's a ground glass, maybe for 4 years or something, paying for that out of pocket, being worried, putting one's life on hold, all this anxiety, potentially losing a lot of time and money, going for an unnecessary biopsy. It's very overrated. I have experience with it of over 30 years. And I joke that the reason why I'm not that excited about high-tech medicine is because I actually understand it quite well. The reasons why patients are thrilled with it is because they don't understand it. The same patient, the guy with going for lung cancer screening, what he should be doing is quitting smoking and eating a low-fat vegan diet, okay? These women worried about breast cancer, they ought to learn about estrogenic chemicals and how to optimize their health, rather than running around with a pink ribbon making money for the drug company and not learning anything about how to protect themselves and lower the risk. A big part of medicine, you can ask any clinical doctor is pressure to go faster, faster, faster. Productivity, productivity, productivity. And what that's all about is the more billing codes a doctor generates, the more money they make. And you might notice some doctors don't seem too interested in small talk, and that's because they're under pressure. Let's say you have an internal medicine doctor working in a clinic. They'll be expected to see a certain number of patients a day. Let's say, 25 patients a day. And if they see 25 patients a day, they make the predicted amount of money. Well, if they don't see, and let's say one doctor is trying to teach the patient about vegan diet, trying to give them more helpful advice, they go too slow, they only see 15 patients a day. The head of that clinic will tell them, look, you're not holding your weight, you're lazy, you either, see 25 patients a day or you're fired. Okay, so they have to play ball with the system or they're fired. And most doctors spend so much time studying through their teen years and their 20s that they really don't know how to do anything else. I got doctor friends that work on their days off just because they don't know what to do with themselves. And the other thing is, doctors, in my opinion, should really not be working for the most part. There's plenty of exceptions to this, but in general, they should have about, at least, they should really probably not work more than 4 days a week. The reason I say that is they need time to read. I know tons of doctors, almost none of them ever reads anything. And I say that because I talk to them all the time, and I almost never hear them say, I read a book and I learned this. I read a scientific paper and I learned this. That is a rare, rare, rare event that any doctor ever tells me they read something and they learned something. Most of them are so tired from all their training and working long hours that they just take their time off to spend a little time with their family. And that's a reality. Okay, and they go to CME. A lot of them will go to CME, they'll sign an attendance sheet, and they'll either sit there and talk to their friends or they'll go out to the beach with their families at some nice place. And they really don't learn much. It's a rare event that somebody comes back from a continuing medical education meeting and tells me they learned something. Sometimes they do. I have seen that happen, but it's not common. Okay, we're almost done here. Here is Alice talking to Humpty Dumpty on the wall, and the point was that patients are fragile, and the bottom line is people have a lot of physiological reserve up until about 30 years of age, and after that they start rapidly becoming more fragile, and they really need to get their act together as soon as possible in terms of optimizing their diet, avoiding toxins, getting some exercise and sleep, avoiding things like, caffeine, aspartame, and all this other stuff. They're all little things that add up. And the point I'm saying is, irreversible disease starts taking its toll late 30s, early 40s, and whatnot. And the longer they go on with bad habits, the more likely they start having irreversible events. Myocardial infarction, refractory impotence, stroke, extensive spinal degeneration, all these types of things. Okay, and then they talked about this one mushroom. And if you take it from one side, Alice would shrink. And if she ate from the other side of the mushroom, Alice would get taller or bigger. Okay, so in a sense, it reminds me that usually the person who goes down the path of pills and more expensive testing, atheisms. Well, I'm kind of getting into the social psyops that kind of turn people into chumps. They just make people lonely. Not having a family, not socially being involved. I'm not going to get into all that psychosocial stuff, but here's the things that build a person up. They get their sunshine. They eat the low-fat, low-sodium, 100% vegan, whole food, plant-based diet, 100% organic. Spend time with their family. They exercise. They sleep. Christianity improves people's lives. Free speech, having a purpose in their life. Quite often that involves helping other people or creating something good. All of those things build a person up. How much of this do they get from conventional medicine? None. None of this. Virtually none of it. What do they typically tell them? Mediterranean diet, which is stupid. Mediterranean diet makes people sick. So anyways, Alice, is getting bossed around by the queen quite a bit and some of these other characters. And many of the characters are in the form of a card. And finally, in the end, through the looking glass, Alex says to the queen, who's really kind of aggressive and nasty, she says, "You are nothing but a pack of cards."